Hello everyone, I really hope you enjoyed this painting video. So to begin with, I'm starting with the view from the cave, which is this kind of window of blue, a window of blue sea, and a rock, a big rock kind of in the middle, and then some trees on the left side, a sort of beachy area as well. And then coming towards myself, or the viewer, there's the tide coming in, and you can see the rest of the cave a little bit. So the reason I'm doing this scene is because there is actually a dent in this canvas. I don't know whether you can see, it's just above the blue that I'm doing at the moment. And so I thought I'd do something a bit experimental. In actual fact, this sort of turned out to be quite difficult, a little bit more difficult than I anticipated, just because it has quite a lot of detail, but the detail is subtle. So there's a lot of subtle nuances, and unless you have the right canvas, I feel like it can be quite difficult to achieve, particularly with oil. I'm not sure how it came out. I guess you could be the judge of that. So I'm beginning by doing the sky, of course, and as you can see, the darker the blue, the higher up you go, the darker the blue, and the closer towards the sea, the lighter the colour. I'm adding a little bit of green mixed in with the blue, sorry, turquoisey green mixed in with the blue, just to give it more kind of, to make it look more like a sky, because I never feel like skies are purely one colour. They've got several colours mixed in, so that's what I'm doing, and I'm just going to go over that with a little bit of green, greeny turquoise later on. And this part is some little mountains in the distance. Now this isn't exactly the colour that they are. I used a reference for this incidentally. It's a copyright-free photograph. I was so inspired when I saw it. And so the mountains here are not exactly the right colour that I wanted, but because this is the first layer, I'm just trying to block in the areas, so it's not too important if I get that wrong. I'm trying to get it roughly right, but I know that I can come back to it, and plus it's not a very large area. As you can see, we're now straight into the sea, so it's just like tiny little mountains in the distance, and then that little blob in the middle is a rock, a kind of whitish rock sort of floating there. It's actually very nice, a very nice composition of photograph, so I thought I would do make sure to leave it and not kick it out, because sometimes I like to change areas. I mean, I think there was another little rock next to it, but I got rid of that because I just thought, oh no, one rock is hard, two rocks is too much. And so as you can see, I'm trying to make sure that there's some transparency in the water, so using a thinner as normal, as I do with water, one by Liquin. It's actually the fine detail one, it's not the big grey, it's not the grey one. And then the water that's coming up to the shore, obviously even more transparent. And then there's actually a shadow from the cave that reflects onto the water. This I actually found to be the most difficult part to achieve, because it kind of, I felt like when I was painting it, it sort of looked like an animal underneath the water or something. It's actually very hard to do shadow on top of water, to paint rather. You'd think it would be easy, but because the shadow is on top of texture, it's a little bit more hard, and that kind of took a long time, and I'm still not 100% sure whether I really got the look that I wanted, but it's sort of in the right direction. I mean, it's good to practice with these things. I'm sure a shadow on the water is going to come up again soon, so maybe this will help with my practice. And so I decided, again, to change the composition. I wanted to make the window of the sky and the distance bigger, because the cave is quite grey, and looking at the canvas in its entirety, I didn't want the whole canvas to be grey. I wanted there to be as little grey as possible. In actual fact, in the photograph, the rocks are very black, because obviously when you take a photograph up against a cave and you've got the light coming towards you, everything in the surrounding area looks black. But I thought that a canvas that has a lot of black in it, for me, I find it kind of looks a little bit, it can look a little bit gloomy, particularly if it's with oil, because the colour is so opaque. So I thought I'd try it with grey this time, and I think it turned out a bit better. I think it's a little bit less kind of stark than black. And so I'm doing like some texture on the water, and I'm making little wavy lines in the water. It's not too defined because from this distance you can't really see big defined waves, so in the end I ended up doing little markings to indicate the waves and not, you know, huge sweeping waves that you would be able to see if you were closer. Mind you, the sea is quite calm, but you would still be able to see the waves if you were actually standing on the beach. I wish I was right there standing on the beach, but sadly I'm not. And so this part looks like a bit of a mess. I always find that actually when you start an oil painting, it looks like a mess. The first stages, it's the moment of despair really, because you feel like it's never going to come together. But luckily it tends to, as long as you continue and pursue with it. And so this was too dark, the seafoam section, and also this rock is way too dark. It looks blue, but there was some blue reflection because the rock is actually white, and because the water is reflecting on the rock and the sky is reflecting on the rock, it's sort of got this blue reflection in it. So I thought I'd do the blue first and go over it with the grey and the white. And so it's sort of coming together now, just extending the trees because I extended the sky area, and the bits of the actually filling in the grey cave, I think some of it off camera because it would have just taken too long. This canvas is quite enormous. It doesn't look that way because I'm making the focal point of the painting. I'm making sure it's in frame, but I couldn't zoom out enough because it went off camera, it went off into another direction. But it is bigger than this, so to paint the cave took quite a while. It was just, and it's not particularly textured, it's just quite a lot of grey. So instead of just sitting here painting grey and talking, I thought I'd speed it up by just doing that bit off camera. And so I'm just adding the little nuances that go underneath the cave, the actual cave itself. And now we're doing the cave walls, and there is some light reflection on the entrance, and here I'm kind of making sure that I don't leave that out because then that gives it some dimension. Otherwise it is just going to be a flat blob of grey either side and not really have much relevance to what's inside. So I wanted there to be some perspective. And I do really like the perspective of looking inwards at things. I think it's really great to experiment with. I really like using different angles and not always going for just a traditional landscape where everything is open and as if you're standing in an open field and looking outwards. It's quite nice to take things, to make paintings from different viewpoints. So as you can see, the cave has been formed around you. And I used a mixture of white and black, obviously, to create the cave walls, and some green and some very light green and some very light blue. And now I'm doing the texture on the sea shadow, the shadow of the cave, and just very tiny markings here because obviously it's not going to be, it would take forever to do every single tiny little wave, but just trying to give the idea of that it is a reflection, it is a shadow rather from the cave. So I think it's sort of taking shape now. I did try to blend in some of the edges so it didn't look like it was a whale or something. I kind of had a feeling it looked like a whale for a while, but I think even if people think it's a whale, it's okay. Actually, it might make it more interesting if they think it's a whale. I was half thinking maybe I should actually paint a whale, but I kind of ran out of time. And I went over the trees on 3 different layers. So first layer was just blocking in the colour, and now this is the third layer, just a little bit of very light green, just trying to get the very tops of the trees, so where the light hits it. So this is pretty much it. I really hope you enjoyed it, managed to get all those details in. It wasn't too difficult. It was just a little bit fiddly when it came to the water, but I think it sort of came together in the end. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you liked this painting. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.